This is our interview series, and I'm very pleased and proud to be talking to the state of New York this time. And welcome to our show, Billie Andersson, the artistic director of Shakespeare Downtown. Hi, Billie. How are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good, good.
I'm
Thanks
doing
for
well.
doing this.
Sure. Thank you for asking.
Of course, I appreciate it. So let's get right into Shakespeare Downtown. Tell us what Shakespeare Downtown is. And I know you're in Lower Manhattan, so let's talk about what the company is and why you found it.
Well, the company, we are in Lower Manhattan, and so we do plays at Castle Clinton National Monument. And Castle Clinton is an old fort, and it's in Battery Park, which is now the Battery. And during the day, it's used to sell tickets to the Statue of Liberty. There's, I'd say, like 15,000 people a day go to the castle to get tickets.
Yeah.
And so I got permission from the National Park Service, because they're the stewards of the castle, to have every June free classical theater. And so for this year, we had a 2-week run. And so this was our 5th season. And so it's an open air fort though. And so it's really perfect for doing Shakespeare's plays. So and also the Battery itself, the woman who is in charge of the Battery Conservancy has transformed it into this paradise. And then she hired this garden designer who's this famous designer in Europe. And so it has this beautiful wild feel to it. So the castle sits at the south end of Battery Park, or the Battery. So it's a really beautiful, beautiful place. And the Castle Clinton at one point had been the New York Aquarium. It had been Castle Garden. I think that's like maybe around 1854, where it was the first entertainment city in New York City. And it was an opera house, and Jenny Lind sang there. So it's this part of New York history, but no one knows about it.
Yeah.
It's just this sort of a magical place. And it's right on New York Harbor. So it's just, it's really gorgeous.
That sounds like something like a coup that you were able to get permission to be able to perform there every June. How did you do that?
It was impossibly difficult. Like if you are not absolutely, obsessed with everything about acting or doing, no one would be able to do it. Well, I live down in Lower Manhattan by the South Street Seaport. Yeah. And so when Mayor Bloomberg was our mayor, he did this wonderful job, and all the along the city, all the walkways, everything, he hired all these people so that you could go all the way around the city on bike paths or walks, and it's just beautiful. And so I like to walk late in the evening, and so I would walk from where we live at the South Street Seaport down to the Battery, which is like about a half an hour walk, and you walk along the East River. And I had never seen it before. And so the director, Jeffrey Horn, he's been an acting teacher at the Lee Strasberg Theater and Film Institute for 40 years. And, he was in the 50s, he was in the movies, Bridge on the River Kwai and Bonjour Tristesse. And he did Broadway. I mean, he was a successful actor in the 50s, an actor, studio actor. And he was my acting teacher. And so that's how we met. And now he's my husband. So we did all these plays at Lee Strasberg, and Anna Strasberg, and her sister Victoria runs a school. Anna Strasberg is Lee Strasberg's widow, and they allowed us to do plays at the school because there's a theater. And so we had done plays for 10 years, and my husband directed, and so he used students, but we filmed them, and so whatever. And I wanted to have a theater company, and so I was very obsessed with that. And so I was walking one night, and we had done Romeo and Juliet, at the school. That was the first Shakespeare play I did, and I wasn't very good. I had done other plays, but Shakespeare is very different than, well, it's the acting, but you have to, the technical demands are separate. It's a very separate thing. And my husband's been teaching Shakespeare for 40 years. So even though we worked on that for a year, I still wasn't very good. And so it just started this obsession. I had to do the play again.
Yeah.
And to do it, hopefully to do it well. And so then I started working with Andrea Herring, who is a wonderful voice teacher. So, because that's, for Shakespeare, voice training is very, very, very important. Especially, I'm a Southerner and I have a more soft way of talking that's natural to me. And that's not actually very good for Shakespeare. It's good for Tennessee Williams, but it's not ideal for Shakespeare. So that was what, it really did change things for me, working with her. I worked for her privately with a year. And then I started working with my husband on Juliet every day for, it was like 7 years, like working,
Wow.
working, because we had done that early on at the school. And so in the meantime, I was so obsessed with doing the play. And so at night, when I like to walk alone, I saw the castle, and it's in the Round, and it is on the water. I mean, it's open air. I just was like, well, oh, this would be perfect for Romeo and Juliet. It's the Capulets' house. It's perfect.
Absolutely.
And so I saw it, and I was completely obsessed. My husband was hesitant because he's been in the acting world for a long, long time. And I guess he knew it would be a tremendous amount of work, but I did all of that, myself. He's teaching full time, and that's not his thing. And not that for anybody that's an artist would want to do that. So I got in touch with Bloomberg, and so his office answered 2 days later, but they didn't know where to tell me. And I finally found out that it was the National Park Service. And it took me 3 years of working I'm an unknown person without, and so for them to feel that they could do it, I guess, it took 3 years, and then I had to raise the money as well. So that's when we had we did Romeo and Juliet at the castle, and it was just a tremendously great experience. So that's how it started, out of all these sort of obsessions. But also my husband is a great acting teacher, and he's taught so many students. And I mean, Alec Baldwin is one of his students, and he taught Mickey Rourke. He taught so many wonderful actors. Yeah. And all these people from the school, actors who are alumni, and also because we have a big cast, we have full cast, also students, so it's a mix. And so acting meant so much to me. I'd never seen a play when I started, and I didn't know anything about it. And so acting transformed my life personally. And so I wanted also to have theater, because it meant so much to me. And so it's just, I felt it was important for other people too. And even the people in the play, once they do Shakespeare, it's different than reading it or seeing it. So that's sort of the very long answer to your question.
Wow, though, your tenacity is amazing, because to get anything done anywhere is one thing, but to get something done in New York, I applaud you, because I lived there for 5 years too. And it sounds like it was a nightmare. It would have been a nightmare, but you made it happen. So
it was impossibly difficult. You have to give over your entire life every day. Since I have not taken one day off, because it's not just to produce a play, it's to try to create a theater. Yeah. And so, like Joe Papp is one of my idols. Yes. I hope other people read both the biography about him and the wonderful story about the theater. It's one of the best books that I ever read. And I mean, he became my idol after I started the company. Before, I was really focused mostly on acting, and but his wonderful feelings about doing things for our great city and for including everyone and bringing it to people who may not have the resources or who just never saw it before. But he was this great hero for our
Hmm.
city. And so, a lot of it was what acting meant to me. But my husband is like this great, great acting teacher. And he has this ability to have people not act, but to be,
Yeah.
And so for people to see Shakespeare done like that, because it's method. So it's people. Some people believe that you can't use the method and do Shakespeare, which is I don't really understand that, because it doesn't matter what technique you use, but as long as you are alive
Yeah.
on the stage, but you have to do something. You can't. Some people say, "Oh, the text takes care of itself," and I don't think so. Like Mark Rylance, the great genius, who was so inspiring. I mean, he spent his whole life studying it, learning it, so that when he performed, we feel as if he's just this person
Yeah.
talking to us. There's no distance, And I don't know if you ever you got to see him. I saw
No.
him, and he has this other gift of talking directly to the audience, and when he does, you really feel as if he's talking to you and that you know him personally. And so the people who teach Shakespeare, like my husband studied with John Barton, and so they have a way of for the speeches, you talk directly to the audience, and then to see someone like Mark Rylance do it, it's like he really does it.
Yeah.
You feel so included in the play. So there's all these things that it just meant so much to me that
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people, like where I'm from in the South. I never saw a play. It wasn't. Now you're in Atlanta, I know, so it may be, but like it just wasn't part of the culture.
Yeah.
And for so many people, though, the arts are it's a place in society that you can feel you fit in, and so that's important to me too. For many people, that's the only place they fit in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true enough. Absolutely. And I think everything that you've talked about, from someone like Rylance making you feel like you're part of it,
Yeah.
to you doing the shows in New York free of charge at the castle, and anyone can come. And Joe Papp and all, it's all about community, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. And like, I had to learn how to write grants and
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an actress. Like, I have no natural gift for any of those things. It was really just, I remember I read for Joe Papp, he said something like, because the theater was always threatened that he was creating for and he changed it for all of us. There's free Shakespeare in every community in the country. And
Absolutely.
it's him.
Yeah.
And I don't know that he gets the credit he deserves, really, this great hero. But I just feel that he just he changed everything, and so all these people, like he did it first at a place very near us. He started at the East River Amphitheater, which
Okay.
is near the castle. It's on the East River, and it was like at that time sort of a ghetto, and so like the actors were rehearsing and like all these kids were throwing rocks at him and all this stuff. And like he had, I think it was like 2,000 people who had never seen a play before, never. And, at first they were against it. And then by the time they opened, when they saw the play, they were just cheering. They had this great experience.
Hmm.
It's just, I found that very moving, very,
Hmm.
very moving, So also, like, we're hoping we can take we haven't announced what we're going to do next year, but I want to take the plays to the prison. We tried that before. We did Hamlet in 2019. We didn't obviously, like everyone else, have a show in 2020,
Right.
but, and so we had worked it out. We were going to do it at the local prison, but at the last minute, the man in charge sent me an email and saying that, I don't know what happened, but they were being punished. So we couldn't bring it. But my husband and I went to the prison and they let us come in and we met all the guys and they were so open to it. It was great. And so now next year, because it takes a little bit of planning, you have to cut the play and so I really, really want to do that. And there's a wonderful book for people interested in Shakespeare. Mark Rylance and Brian Cox, also, both great actors. They did Shakespeare in England it was Broadmoor. It was a prison for the criminally insane. And Mark Rylance did Hamlet and Brian Cox played King Lear. And there's a wonderful book about it. And all the actors, not just those two, their interviews are really particularly great, but they had this wonderful experience. And because it was they were the criminally insane, they would be, the inmates would be wandering around during the performance a little bit. So they both said that it was one of the best experiences of their life. And so it's not just the people in the city, that don't have access to it. Because again, it was what changed my life. I come from I had a very difficult childhood. And so it was a way of life for me that I didn't have any other thing that really fit. And a lot of the people who are drawn to acting, they say the method is like therapy. It's not exactly like that, because I've had a lot of therapy. It's not really like that, but it's this thing. It's a cathartic, almost it's a form of ecstasy in a way, if you can be beyond yourself, if you can really, if they always use those words like in the zone for athletes, but if you have a moment like that, not only do you never forget it, but when I've seen other performers do it, like my favorite performer ever is Maria Callas, who you listen to her and she creates that sort of ecstasy for the people who listen to her. And so it's not just for the people in Lower Manhattan, but I also have this soft spot for people who have been cast out, by society. Basically, also I had, from my childhood, I know about people like that. And so for them to have a positive experience like that and also a lot of people feel that Shakespeare is not for them, or classical music is not for them, or opera, because even in our productions, we use classical music. It's not period specific, but here and there a little bit, to create the total experience of something beautiful. And so I think it's off-putting. People think, oh, you have to be a certain way to care about high art. But I don't think it's true. It's just you have to be introduced to it in the right sort of way. And then you're included. Because my husband's such a wonderful teacher, the people who are involved, and the people who see it, it's like the characters in Shakespeare's plays. A lot of people have heard, they know their names, but they don't have a relationship to it. And then when you see it or you're in the play, it's not something that's removed from you. It's something that most people can relate to, that they can feel like, I don't have to have extra degree to it's not about that. And the people obviously that Shakespeare in his day, that in the audience, it was everyone. It had nothing to do with
class or anything.
Nothing. And so for all the performing arts, I guess, but for the theater, for Shakespeare, love opera and classical music. I I really feel that if people were introduced to those things, it's just this wonderful thing. Like Mozart, like everybody could like it. They just haven't heard it. And it's not really part of our educational system. So you don't really get to know it.
Yeah.
You are excluded from, but I think are some of the most wonderful things in life. So the company was really this total effort on my part to create something that I would like if I went,
Yeah.
and my sister is, Amy Goosens is an interior designer, and she used to work for Peter Marino, he was on 60 Minutes as one of the top designers in the world, absolutely the most wonderful houses and everything. And so she does our sets and costumes. And like when we just did the Three Sisters, she lent us all of her antique furniture for the play and all of her beautiful things. And then when we rent the costumes from the costume collection, a lot of them are from the Met Opera.
Yeah.
So we use period costumes. I know maybe for some people that's not the trend now, but as an actress, it's very helpful to be in period clothing, and aesthetically, I find it beautiful. So we have this wonderful open air theater and these costumes, and then Carlos Vitante is our choreographer. He does the dances he coaches the actors because none of the actors are dancers. So,
Sure.
But he's able to teach us to dance, as non-dancers. And so then we also have the sword fight. So it's just it requires all my effort, all my time, all my everything, but it's really worth it. And
Well,
I
yeah,
hope,
and
go on.
I was just going to say, and you're creating community and giving this gift to other people that some are looking for it and some aren't. Like
Yeah.
I hear great stories, and I'd love to talk to them sometime about the folks at Shakespeare Behind Bars up. They
Yeah.
work with in Kentucky and different places, and they do amazing work with inmates and
Yes.
and Shakespeare. And so
I love all
absolutely get
those
where you're coming from.
beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful things.
Yeah, we
There was
don't know things like you say until we're exposed to them, and it's to our detriment sometimes that we're closed in and not exposed to some of
people
these
just
other
never
things.
had a chance, it's not even, it's just, if you're not, I always wanted to know about classical music and opera, but until I met my husband, he introduced it to me. I wanted to know. The first music he ever gave me was Maria Callas singing Carmen, and I said, "Who is that?" And I had an immediate reaction, a connection to that. But
Yeah.
you have to have somebody to sort of, in the beginning, introduce you to it, so that it's not so overwhelming,
Yeah.
And so,
Give you a way in.
yeah. And then if you have if it's a fit, if it's something you like, then you don't really need that much help. But in the beginning, it's very overwhelming. And in our country, we don't really have any arts education about,
Mhm.
we really don't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mostly sports, which is fine, but they really, it's a failure really, because so many people would find a way in life if they were given access to work in the arts. And that would cut down on, all the problems in society, because people have to find a place where they fit in.
Yeah.
And so we don't have that here. And so we don't fund it either, which I don't understand. All the countries, the great countries over time, have had a wonderful arts program that reflects their country's values, their history, everything. So for us not to fund that, not only is it a mistake, but it hurts us economically, because, from writing all these grants, I had to learn about these things because it's my job. But every community that has some new arts thing that works, then the businesses they found have profited. And the community gets cleaned up. It's like a, and when Bloomberg was mayor, he was very good about that. You know, he really focused on that, but it's just it's a serious problem in our country that it just leaves out so many people. It would help the economy. It's just, and we have this great country that's a unique voice in the world. Yes, Hollywood movies are great, but there's more than that.
Yeah.
It's a lot more than that. I know everyone wants to do that, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have other things as well. So it's really me forming this was sort of a total belief system of what I care about.
Yeah.
You know, it was, and it would take something like that to make it happen, because it's still difficult. It doesn't get easier, because I have nothing to do with the directing, you know, nothing. My husband is our teacher and director, but I'm in charge of everything else. So like, you know, would it be nice to be just the actress and go to the theater? Yes, but you know, hopefully at some point there will be somebody who I can get to be the executive director, and I would be doing less of that.
Yeah.
But since it's my company, I really also wanted to learn, what are all these things? I want to know. I want it to the foundation to be secure, and to learn these things also, because when you're forced as an artist to do these things, artists don't want to do it. I understand that. But like even writing a grant, your mind has to change to learn every detail of the artistic venture you want to have happen. And so it becomes better. And it's really a strange thing for people who see this who are artists, is that there are many, like all actors, they have acting problems that you know, plague them forever. You know, everyone has them, even Marlon Brando, the greatest actor ever, or Eleanor Duse, but we didn't get to see her. But you have these acting problems, these, you know, and since my husband is an acting teacher, that's what we like to do, is work on acting. But there were these things that I just couldn't ever overcome. And then I found from doing the castle, because it was so very difficult, it was like the weight of the world, the castle on top of me,
Right.
that doing something that you wouldn't think has anything to do with acting helped those very problems, that they started to be transformed by something different.
Yeah.
And so it's a strange thing. And these problems would not budge. I mean, movement class, boy, nothing. But it was the difficulties involved in creating something and doing things I don't want to do, write grants, take classes about the budget, you know.
Yeah.
To get the Battery Park City Authority to include us, I had to go to one of their open meetings about the budget for 6 hours. And then at the end, I raised my hand to say, you know, we have a Shakespeare company, can you send us, you know, but all those things actually help my acting problem. So for artists who are trying to, you know, because in this, artists all have to sort of create their own work in a way.
Yeah.
You know, there are some people who have careers who can do that, but it's probably, even for people like that, it's always good to pick the thing that you want to do and then make it happen. Like, whether you're exactly right for the part or not, it's like, as long as your interior life is right, that's all that matters. And then to make that happen, no matter what it takes, that seems like everybody should do that. And so I'm just saying, as an actress, me doing that helped my acting, which I never thought that would happen.
You know, the whole theme of this conversation has been exactly that, has been expanding into other things, you know, reaching other things, being exposed to other things, and therefore, you know, becoming a better, more rounded person, a better community, a better world, that kind of, you know, and it makes a lot of sense.
It just changes you. It really does. And it's not what you want to do, but it just does all these wonderful things. And like for actors, it's sort of, some actors get into this pattern that it's a passive career, that you have to be chosen
Mm.
you have all this rejection. And so, and then, after a certain point, most people stop because there's not enough work and they want to have a family, they want to pay the
Yeah.
bills. And so the thing about starting something you want to do, whether, not saying that it has to be a theater, but even just putting on a play or doing a film or a small, whatever, it just, you take back that thing where you are at the mercy of being chosen, because
Mhm.
that gets really old.
Yeah, it does.
If you want to do something, there shouldn't be anyone else in the world who has any say about it. You should just do it. Whether the people say, "Oh, you're not right for this," or "You can't do it," that should have no bearing. And then
Yeah.
you start to feel less powerless, which is a thing for actors. It's not, then it's different. So the whole thing, this whole creation has sort of been like, when I started, I went to Barnard and then I went to acting school directly and started, but it works. Obviously what I did is but for every person in the arts, for their art, it really, to take charge of what you want to do, it just changes it for you. And I think for a lot of other people, like we had a cast of 16 for the three sisters.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the people, it was very difficult during COVID. We had to rehearse on Zoom, which
Yeah,
was,
of course.
It was torture. I mean, and
Yeah.
then we didn't get to get up and do the blocking until we were at the castle. And so like, we have a big company of actors because my husband was and is an acting teacher. So it's this really big group. Anyone who's done a play is part of the company, including
Yeah.
the interns and the technical crew. But a lot of the people that were spread out that we use normally, and they weren't able to do plays. So we had a lot of new people and they had never done a play before. And so to get to do Chekhov with a great director outdoors at this beautiful place, there was 16 people. They were it's a new thing for them.
Yeah.
So
you just finished that though, right?
yes, it just
How
closed.
long did you run Chekhov for?
We had a 2-week run. Like
Okay.
when we had Romeo and Juliet, it was 3 weeks. But then, in terms of the fundraising and everything, difficulty of doing it, for now, we keeping it what we can do.
Yeah.
There's this great
absolutely.
organization, ART New York, who advises theaters. They have classes, like it's good for people to go to these, to learn these things. And this wonderful woman, Sarah Benvenuti, who advises me that they're about, she does a little editing on grants because I'm an actress. I had to learn that sort of language. But she said this year, because it was really iffy if we could even do it, is about survival for the group. And then she said, and next year you can think, maybe we're back. And then the year after you can go back to the momentum. So to really just make it happen and not put too much pressure on, well, we have to, which thank God she told me that, because it was very, very, very difficult when the castle was giving us, working out permission, the COVID was still terrible.
Yeah.
And they had a requirement that they only wanted to have 25 people there. And we can't do a play for 25 people. But by the end, all the restrictions were lifted.
Great.
But as a producer, you don't know that's going to happen because COVID has been so terrible for everyone. We don't know.
Absolutely.
So it actually worked out very well.
Well, that's great. And I think every theater company I talked to, it was really in the same boat. It's like, let's survive through this right now. Let's do what we can to stay in touch with our audience.
Yes.
Let's produce what we can. And then hopefully next year it's a little better and then back to normal, hopefully.
Oh, so that everyone is saying that. So,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some theaters have closed and aren't coming back, and that's a shame
terrible.
too. But
it is.
Other people will be starting new ones, and it kind of goes on and on like that. Well, I love your story. I think it's fantastic. Congrats to you and to Jeffrey for starting the company, Shakespeare Downtown. What is the website so people can check it out? Shakespeare Downtown.
ShakespeareDowntown.org.
.org. Okay,
Yeah,
so I'll put
and
that in the show notes.
yeah, and there's videos like so they can see. Yeah, I don't know. It's nice like to see
Absolutely.
what the work is like if you decide you want to, take the trip to go out and see the show. And so
Absolutely.
I don't know. Yeah, it's been a very life-changing experience.
Well, I appreciate you sharing it with us. And if I'm in New York next summer, I'll definitely be looking you up.
Definitely, and you send me an email and I'll reserve a front row seat for you.
Let me ask you this. So my final question for you, and I ask this to everyone that I talk to, and it's Shakespeare related. So it's
Mhm.
if Shakespeare was on this call with you and I, and you
Mhm.
got to ask him one question, what would you want to ask him?
Well, I think because even though I've done all this as a producer, I'm really an actress.
Yeah.
And so, I would want him to, coach me.
Yeah.
And the part that I love the most out of any of all the parts I've done is Juliet. I love Juliet. And I never identified with it. I never thought about it. But when I did it, it's different when you do it.
Yeah.
The play. It's not what you think. It's not some silly romantic. It's not like that. She's a very determined girl. Very, very, very. And so I would want him to coach me as Juliet so that I could give the best performance that he would like. If I could
Yeah.
have anything, that I would die for.
Yeah. That would be
Die
amazing.
for that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. So I won't keep you any longer. Thank you so much for
Thank
telling us
you.
about your experience and
Yes.
starting the company and what it takes to set a goal and then keep going through it, because that's what everything in life is about in my mind.
Yes.
And there's
Yes.
always doors closing, but sometimes you have to keep knocking and keep
Yes,
knocking.
yes. And if you just every day you do like whatever's on the list, it's strange. Pretty soon you're very far along without, but don't think about it. Just keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep
Just
going.
that's it. That's it.
I love it.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you
Well,
very
thank
much.
you so much. This has been Billie Andersson, artistic director and co-founder of Shakespeare Downtown. Stay on the line here after we say goodbye.
Sure.
But
Sure.
thanks so much. It was great to meet you and hear about your story.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Okay.